Hello, everyone. It has been a bit. Welcome to another episode of Talking Away the Taboo. I am really grateful and honored tonight to be hosting a conversation with a new friend, a new colleague of mine, not because he's new, but because we just met, so I'm saying new. His name is Michael Neuman, and he is a licensed clinical social worker. But he's also got his hands in lots of different things, which he's going to talk about. But he's here tonight to talk about men's mental health. And I'm grabbing in here. Hopefully the tech works. It does. Look at that. The tech actually works. Look at that. You know, it's amazing when technology works.
No technical difficulties. I feel like we've won.
Already, we could end right now, and
That's it.
it would all be good. It would all be
Good
good.
night.
Um, okay, so Michael, I mean, I can introduce you, but I kind of feel like you should really introduce yourself because you know you better than I know you, frankly. Um, we're here to have a conversation about men's mental health and the silence of men's mental health. And I really thought that you were the right person to do this with because you have a specific specialty in that. But before we even get to that topic, I want just can you give everyone just an introduction as to who you are and why we're having this conversation? Why are we talking about men's mental health in a Jewish fertility space? So let's do a little bit of background for everybody.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on, giving me the opportunity to hopefully make such an impact. As my friend told me coming on, if we make one person feel less lonely, we've won. So that's a really important thing. As far as my background, I'm a licensed clinician, licensed psychotherapist. Have a nonprofit, JF for Life, that I love dearly. Been on TV shows, things like that. I
Hold
think
on, hold on. You can't just like drop those things and not say like more. You got to give us a little. I've been on TV shows. I'm a celeb. Come on, give us a little more. Give
I'm
us a
going to
little more.
challenge myself only because I get uncomfortable talking about myself. So I'll do some mental health work on myself, to share. So yeah, we take kids and teens with physical challenges through extreme races and sports. Heroes that we've created this whole community of, kids and teens in, wheelchairs, battling cancer, seizures, different types of physical challenges, rare illnesses, and we take them through these incredible races, extreme races. I, have a practice that I very much love doing, impacting people every day, trying to work with them to, find their best self and to, really make their impact on the world and just to be that assistance. So that's incredible. I definitely am an avid athlete, as I've been a pro Spartan racer, and I've been on. I was one of the winners on $1 Million Mile on LeBron James' show. I was on two-time American Ninja Warrior, where I made semifinals and then gave up for Shabbos,
Wow.
which, it was about the kids and their stories got lost because they cut me from the show, but then they released a video. It was very inspiring to at least have their voices heard, the kids in the nonprofit. And then I was just recently on Beast Games, which is YouTuber Jimmy Donaldson, who had this huge Beast Games thing. And then as well, also that went into Shabbos, and I gave up my role for Shabbos. And then aside from that, who I am, I feel I'm somebody who, telling people I feel I'm somebody who every day tries to figure out who I am in order then to be able to make the impact that Hashem is obviously leading me to. So trying to better myself every day or every moment. Sometimes that doesn't work. We go backwards and go forwards, but we give it our best.
That's part of life. That's part of life. Okay,
Okay,
I mean
good.
you have an incredible story, so I couldn't not ask you that piece. So I'm apologizing here for making you feel a little uncomfortable, but I felt like I wanted people really to get a sense of who you were. beyond, the incredible work that you do with men's mental health. But let's now talk about your fertility story, because you are a licensed clinical social worker and you've been doing that work. But I when you and I spoke, what you said was that your own fertility story kind of made you realize that there was this untapped field that really needed to be addressed in regard to men's mental health around pregnancy and postpartum. So walk us back and tell us, like,
Yeah.
what happened during your story and what made you realize that.
So first off, I 100% missed my wife and baby. They're part of my story, and they're should be at the top. And they're amazing, and that's definitely waking up every day, being the husband and the father that I am grateful to be. So that is that's a big one for me that I wanted to make sure I got in there as well. So to fertility story. So the main thing that I have discovered, right? We'll go backwards and go forwards a little bit. The main quick thing I've discovered is there's a huge gap in the mental health field. Thank goodness that we are there for the women. What a wonderful thing! Unbelievable in the mental health field that you walk into a clinic, a doctor's office, pediatrician, fertility clinic, and there is screenings and there is a sit down and the doctor says, so how are you? How's your mental health? And that's unbelievable. The guy sits there and, life has changed, has never been up at 3 a.m. if, you have baby or never been through these things, and financial pressures and being there for your partner and all these different things. Postpartum is real. And, and he himself does not feel like he is allowed really to share that with his partner because she's going through so much. How could I, voice what I'm going through and all these routine changes and all these emotional baggage that's really, holding us down. And it really, hopefully, I can bridge that gap, have these conversations to where we can get doctors to just turn to the guy. One simple thing. Hey, how are you doing? I go to doctors' offices and I try to also coach them, not coach them, try to discuss and have an understanding that, when there's also when you ask, a guy might make a joke, right? Well, that's the defense mechanism. Guy might not be there and, ask the woman, the partner, and say, hey, how's your husband doing? Well, he's working more and he's, working out more. And, I never seen a video game addiction this bad, and those are all telltale signs for the doctors to say, hey, we have to support this guy in order also to better the environment for, the women going through, especially fertility and, high risk pregnancies and postpartum. This is an important thing. So that's my goal and my mission right now, and it comes from my fertility story and journey.
Yeah. So I want to get to all of that, and I want to sort of really delve into some of the pieces about, the signs that some of the things you were mentioning, and what are the things that we can do to help, and all of us really. But can you can you take us back and share a little bit about your journey, you and your wife, and your journey to have your daughter, and what that experience was like for you? Because I'm guessing, and maybe I'm wrong here. Like, was this when you went to school to be a social worker? Was this an area that you always knew that you wanted to focus on, or it was more, you were doing you were thinking about broad stuff, and it was through then maybe your own experience that you started to specialize? Like, how did it come about?
It's an amazing question because it shows how much Hashem is in control and how you just have to ride the waves. Because when I started, I wanted to see teenagers, realized that didn't work, and then I fell into young adults, assisting young adults in their life. So no, never wasn't even on the horizon. You know what I mean? Never even came into my head. So it's an amazing thing to have a perspective and be like, oh my gosh, what a journey to get here. So yes, the journey though starts, where everyone, you know, the heart, you think hard part a lot of times, and it is over when you get pregnant. And when you sit in a doctor's office and they, say words, and I don't mean to trigger anyone here, but when they say words such as there is no heartbeat, and as a, at least I can speak for myself as far as men, um, we don't think that could happen. That comes out of nowhere. It's a brick. We think everything is going to be perfect. It's easy. We did the hard part. Smooth sailing, so much fun. So wasn't that. And when things come out of nowhere, it hurts really bad, as opposed to being ready for it, getting hit in the stomach. If you're ready for it, it's a lot easier to take. But this does you don't get a warning. And so that was so tough for us, but in a weird, awful way, it definitely, you know, allowed us for the journey that it doesn't end there. So you kind of say sink or swim, for couples when you go through things like this. My wife and I built a boat. Like we were ready, like for what ends up happening. Second, second pregnancy at 34 weeks. I chuckle only because I feel most men, a lot of times, by the way, when they hear due date, a lot of times they feel that is like the exact date that the baby will be born, because we're just not thinking. And I don't mean to disparage, we're just not. And a lot of times it's like, wait, what? Babies can come early? So at 34 weeks, at 12 a.m., there's blood, and, I felt the worst. Heart drops, everything drops. But then my wife says there's kicking. So we rush to the emergency room. Um, you know, Doctor immediately recognizes something's terribly wrong. I'm seeing all of this. She even says, to my wife, oh, after the ultrasound, we're going to go call the doctor after. Everything's fine, I don't think she said everything's fine. We're going to make sure. And I hear immediately she called the doctor, behind me. So I'm already, doctor showed up there like within 7 minutes. Unbelievable. And within a moment, we're now being sent to the emergency room. What ends up happening is, to short-stop the story, is my wife had a placenta
Oh,
abruption. Placenta
explain. I
abruptions.
was just going to say, explain that for the people who don't know
Yes,
what that is.
placenta abruptions, very rare. Most of the times happens when a woman is in labor. To go backwards for a second, my wife was having contractions every 2 minutes and didn't feel it. So it was a very bizarre thing also, where you usually feel it. And then the doctors, while, you're already at the hospital, they help, it's manageable. Severe placenta abruptions are very, very, very dangerous. You know, baby is high at risk, wife is at high at risk of passing, and it's an extremely dangerous thing. On top of that, our story, unfortunately, was the blood went into the sac. So my baby was born actually with blood in her lungs, and the doctors were working like for 5 minutes to get her to breathe. So this tough girl just held her breath and kept holding her breath. Both of them tough women. And and of medical literature, and there could be other people who've had it, just haven't stepped forward. Of medical literature, they, the 5 or 10 cases that they have of the blood going into the sac, the mother and the babies have not survived and do not
Oh
survive
God.
of
Oh
this
my God.
story. So the miracle, the nace that happens. The thing for me where it kind of all starts is that we're in front of the door, they're prepping her in OR, I'm sitting there, and I have to tell you, I don't know if there was a portal underneath me. I'm having conversations with Hashem, God, energies. I'm meditating. I am, I do a thing where I rate my emotions. I'm at like a -1, and I am just sitting there. And it was a euphoric moment for me because I remember vaguely feeling and thinking, men are not ready for this. And I don't mean to say that we built a generation of weak men. I don't want to go on that sense. I think just in general, always, men have never been ready for that, because in that moment, you are so vulnerable. And men in general, everyone in general, obviously, will do anything to avoid vulnerability. Anything, right? We have to win. We have to compete. We have to be right. We have all the right answers. There, we do not want to feel vulnerable. That is a scary thing. Means, you can go evolutionarily, societally,
Yep.
biologically, however, whatever argument you want to use. It is dangerous for men to feel that way. So hopefully we can bridge that gap to allow men to understand that, anyone obviously, but men particularly in these situations, to understand that specifically in fertility, specifically in high-risk pregnancies, you're not in control. And to learn how, a lot of times in my practice, I try to, assist, help men understand that we have to learn a mechanism of how to give up control and how to be vulnerable and not to hide ourselves through the fear of vulnerability.
Okay, wait, but before we get to that, which we're going to get to, I just, I mean, I know already, but I want our audience to know what happened. What
Oh yeah,
happens with your
that's a
wife
big
and the baby? What
that's a big thing.
happens?
Baruch Hashem, everyone is healthy and fine and completely fine. Unbelievable to say when a doctor walked in, baby's not moving. We gotta get her out. Thinking that she was completely brain dead and all
Oh my
those
God.
things. And she's amazing. She's wonderful. And I'll say something beautiful that I've taken just kind of spiritually. And this is for everyone. Hopefully, everyone will have this blessing, whether it's a tougher road, easier road, whatever it is. When your baby cries, it's the most amazing thing in the world, because we were waiting for 5 minutes as the nurse was saying, we haven't heard her cry yet, and then she cried and all the doctors cheered. So anytime your baby's crying at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you're agitated, deep breath, bracha. It's type of, so.
Remember that the crying is not meant to piss you off. The crying is a blessing.
The blessing. It's a form of communication and
Yeah.
connection that is beautiful, even in our worst times, to reach out to somebody, whether crying, whether agitated, any emotion. Babies are telling you that they're here for you to connect with.
I 1,000%. Okay, so now, first of all, thank God. I mean, I assumed because you said in the beginning, oh, this is also for my wife and daughter. So I made the assumption. I'm sure everybody did also, but I felt like we just needed to close that loop and make sure to tell everybody about your wife and daughter.
Amazing clip we were.
What is your daughter's name?
So her name's Sierra Lexi,
Beautiful,
meaning in Greek and Spanish, defender of mountains. And
beautiful,
then her name is Esther Hannah.
beautiful,
Her two grandmothers. One grandmother that was very, very tough and strong, and life didn't mess with her, and another grandmother, two sets of grandmothers who were Hannah's, who were sweet and kind. So we wanted both of those energies to guide her. Although she obviously is she's good. She's
beautiful.
got it.
Beautiful, and all of you should continue to be well.
Yeah.
But let's now switch gears into, this whole experience really, as you said, just like it really struck you that there is so much that's lacking for men in the pregnancy, infertility, fertility journey, postpartum period, that there's so much support that's lacking. Um, can you just go a little bit into, you know, like the a man's identity is very much wrapped up in like whether he's married, whether he has children, and specifically in fertility itself, when there's the struggle to have a child or the number of children you want, that's already like that's an identity piece. So how do like can you sort of talk about that piece first when things don't happen as planned? um I mean, I know for women, and I'm guessing for men too, we're always told like, oh, from the time you're young, oh, when you get older you'll get married, you'll have this number of kids, it'll be like, no one talks about that it might be difficult. And a lot of the disconnect, even for women, that happens is when everybody else is popping out babies at whatever point, or everybody else is getting married at a certain point and then you're not. And that, like, that discomfort. So how do what's the perception for men in regard to all of that?
It's a hard one, only because men are looking to solve and move through the problem. So it's a fascinating question because men are very good at distracting, at not, in my practice all the time. If I ask a guy, hey, what's your goal? What's your identity? Who are you? Who are you makes men very uncomfortable. If you ask a guy, I mean, most people obviously, but you ask a guy, what's your goal? It's very goal driven, and it's not, and men have a very hard time, you know, not building that identity. A lot of men will fall into the identity because they're, again, whatever reason it is, very focused on accomplishing, having the answers, winning. Men are very, very good at winning, and or feeling that they need to win.
Yeah.
When in reality, I've said this before. When in reality, winning, unless you're trying to win millions of dollars on show or sports thing or whatever, winning means nothing. You see a guy play basketball, and if he loses, the whole day is over. When in reality, all that happened, when you win, it's just somebody else feels more terrible than you. That's it. Winning doesn't mean that. So for a lot of guys, it's finding a lot of times other identities to see other people. Men emotionally will not feel it until much later. So men a lot of times, if they're in it, if they're in the battle, they're in the war, they're in the moment, they problem solve, they're trying to figure it out. It does not mean that men do not feel it at that moment, right? A lot of times, intuitive people, vulnerable people will feel it in that moment. I feel sad now. Men, a lot of times, will feel sad, bury it, and then it will just implode emotionally 3 weeks later, 2 months later, a year later, and they'll have no idea where it's from and why the heck it's around, and then blame it on other things, right? So it's kind of a unfortunate trap that men fall into emotionally, that they'll work very hard to get through the problem, and then later it'll all come out of nowhere. They don't know where it's from. It can't be from 2 months ago. You can't. No, that's got to be this issue.
Right.
But no, you bottled it up. You pushed it down. Rightfully so. Sometimes rightfully so. You got to be strong in this moment. You got to figure out the problem. But men won't feel it right then. They'll go push it off. So I think it's a little dangerous, as you're saying, seeing a lot of other people having babies and having all these things. How can I get a baby? How can I get married? How can I, they're not giving themselves a moment. And then unfortunately, potentially in a week, 3 weeks, a month, a year, it just all starts hurting and they don't know why it's hurting. And it can't be from because all their friends are getting married or having babies. It's got to be because I had a rough day at work.
And do you think, I mean, so let's take that scenario and play it forward, right? So, you know, there was some kind of fertility something, let's call there was a miscarriage 2 months ago, right? For this specific, guy that we're talking about. And he's fine, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine. He had a bad day at work today and he just loses it,
Yeah.
right? Like, is there, I mean, what are your suggestions to someone like that, both for himself and also for the people around him? Like, is
Yep.
it is it that, like, you know, I I've always heard the idea that you can't force people to talk. You can't force people to emote, to feel. Like, you can't say, like, you're not having feelings. Oh, well, here, I'll talk about, like, it doesn't work, right? So what are your suggestions? Like, how do we make this easier for them?
So it's an interesting thing because, as you're saying, you can't force somebody to do something that, first, their brains aren't there. I say it, if you're fighting a war, you're in the amygdala. If you're back in civilization, you're in the frontal lobe. You don't want to have your frontal lobe firing when you're in battle. It doesn't work. You're going to die. So it's not to disparage the feelings, it's to understand where the guy is. If he's right now in go mode, that's where he is. He's trying to solve the issue. Obviously, we would like for guys to also understand that they're piling it up, and later when they turn into the frontal lobe, it's going to be a mess and they're not taking care of it. That's a dangerous thing for everybody involved. From the man side first, one of the things guys have lost, unfortunately, is a concept of third places. In the 1990s, recognizing that third places are leaving, right? That it used to be in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you had a place where you could go where everybody knew your name. You had a place where, you need to go get a drink, you need to go play a golf game, you need to, be at shul on the side having a one-to-one, you have your 3 or 4 buddies, you sit around, it's intimate, they're, I had a terrible day, that was healthy, that was appropriate, right? It's not taking away from the spouse or partner, a lot going on, you have that, that space. With cell phones, with technology, with the whole sounding the alarm and everything, we've lost that. Guys don't have that. It's not the same to call up somebody and, type of thing. And we've lost the intimate 4 or 5 people that you can rely on and call. Not just from a physical hanging out standpoint. I have a group of people that I can call that have different personalities, that are dear friends of mine, that I can call for those moments. I have a rabbi that's more spiritual. I have a rabbi that's more frank. I have a friend that's, if I'm feeling, too relaxed about something, a go-getter. I have another friend that's way too relaxed. I have all these people that, you gotta go, go hang out with somebody. So for guys, and I've learned this in my nonprofit, you have to build the community in order to sustain those horrendous moments in life. It doesn't happen when you're in the battle. It's the training before the battle. To communicate with men in that moment, which is very hard, I have 3 things that I suggest. And the first thing is, if you need to have the conversation with the guy, with the male, whether parent, whether guy to guy, whether spouse, partner to guy, go do something. Go do something fun. Guys really don't like sitting on a couch talking one-on-one. As much as therapy promotes that, we don't. We don't like sitting there. We want, how can I solve the conversation? It's not stimulating, especially in the world of phones and stimulating. No one can focus for more than 2 minutes now on a conversation.
Totally.
So go do something, whether it's something fun, whether it's just a walk, whether it's working out together, or a class or something. That way you can have that conversation. The second thing, when things are tough and really emotional and you're needing a guy in those moments of fertility, when a guy himself is feeling that but isn't, he's still razzled, but he's not, ready to talk, as you said, I tell guys, text, for 2 reasons. One, you're going to think twice before you text, so you don't say something horrendous, because there's an explosiveness sometimes. And second, it can always be pulled back from your partner. And that's a good thing. It's good. It's a good thing. It challenges you. And for spouses and partners, text. It's better to text than to sit and, guys are going to feel defensive. It's better to text and to start off, obviously, in a kind way with the text, and then get to what you need if it's intense. And the third thing, and this is something that I learned, is through my nonprofit, we do a simulation where we simulate the kids and their physical challenges, and I try down all of the simulations. And I remember my good friend taking me through the little obstacle course and thinking, there is just no way I'm going to be able to finish this. My mouth was closed. I couldn't hear. I got, simulating heaviness in your arms and your things, and I had to do monkey bars, and I was like, there's no way. And he's trying to help me, and I was like, there's no way. One thing I can do, right, when I help people with life adjustments, one thing I can do, it's 7 things, forget about it. You're in it. It's too hard. All I wanted was a hug. And it's a shocking thing for people to hear. Men are that emotional. We don't express it a lot of times. We just want a hug. If it's to start the day, especially I feel like guys are hug deprived. No, guys don't hug anymore. Um, you just what a hug. Don't even have to say anything. That's enough. And through that hug, you communicate. You're going through something horrendous right now. It's very tough. And to what you were saying, by the way, before, when you say to guys a lot of times, "Oh my gosh, something happened," even a death or something tragic. Oh my, or they come to me and they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry." They're, it's fine. It was in the past. I go, it wasn't then. You're fine with it now, but I'm just saying I'm so sorry for you then. And that does a lot for people in general, but guys specifically because they've moved on so far from it. It's such a distant thing, the issue that they had, and they, buried it, their emotions so much.
So you're saying that even if they've buried it and they're like kind of pushing it away, just even your acknowledgement of it is a good thing. Is a good thing.
It was a horrendous time. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe that's horrible. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That sucks. Oh no, that was before. Well, it happened then. Oh, thank you. It's they moved so far past it and have created a whole not moving. It's funny sometimes. I don't know if this is agreed upon or not, but just a thought now. Sometimes guys are way too present. Like they're just so focused on what the goal and the mission is that they're not giving themselves time, from a meditative standpoint, they're not giving themselves time to go backwards because, as I said, it does seem that men do move
Right.
forward, but the emotions happen. I've for myself have given myself a couple of days because I've kind of pinpointed when it happens. It's usually 3 to 6 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks after when like I start to feel it, and I kind of put in my calendar, that get ready. Don't forget. Be aware for
Oh,
myself personally,
right.
and because you move past it, you're like, okay, it's 3 weeks ago.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Are there any things specifically on the flip side that people should not do or should not say? Suggestions on that end?
It's a good question. Um, One of the things this just came up to me for right now. One of the things my wife mentioned, which is a good thing. Another thing I just forget, which is for women to communicate to guys that they can cry with them. That guys cry, but we cry by ourselves. So one of the things I would say is don't disparage crying
Right.
as a sign of weakness. I have a motto that real men cry. And I kind of say it in this sense like whatever version of man, whatever that means, man, I eat meat, I work out, I love hockey, I'll have a nice drink with my buddies, and I cry. I love it. It's great. So to, you know, give someone the space, to not disparage that, to give somebody the space, not to say, oh, you can cry, but to hint and be like, oh, guys cry all the time. I hear it, and to give that space for somebody to have that space with you. So to not disparage um, the vulnerability of men because it's very uncomfortable for men to be vulnerable. Like as I'm saying it now, in my body, I can feel it. Super uncomfortable
Wow.
for a guy to
Wow.
be vulnerable and to say that's when guys come to my practice. I really do say like you're a winner because even for you to admit that you need help right now. By the way, I feel so bad that you're at this place. Obviously that you're there, but a lot of times the guys that they're not there yet, they're just like, whoa, I just have to figure this out. I'm like, that's incredible because it's very tough to be like, I need help. The old unfortunate adage that men don't like to, you know, this is old, right? Because we have GPSs now. Men don't like to ask for directions. That hasn't gone anywhere.
Well, now everybody has ways, so they don't need to
That's
ask
what
for
I'm
directions
saying.
anymore.
I'm saying it's now it's
Google
now
Maps.
it's something else.
Yeah,
But we've lost that adage,
totally.
for guys.
Totally. but what if, like, if I push you further, right?
Sure.
Like, okay, what if it's not that they're not asking for directions because that doesn't exist anymore, but what if they are really, you can see that they're disconnected. You can see that they're just out of sorts, but every time you try to kind of push a little to say like, hey, I'm here to talk, or maybe you should talk to someone, or maybe you should go out with your, like, they're just like, no, 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 no. Like, what do you do? Do you just like leave it alone?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
So for your own mental health, although this is not what people want to hear, yes, a lot of times when you let things go, just in general, that's helpful, right? When you take away the tension, it's helpful. When you're in a riptide or when you're driving on ice, right? The initial instinct is to swim out or turn away from the side of of the ice, but in reality, you're supposed to turn into the ice. And when you're in a riptide, you're supposed to swim parallel, but more to take deep breaths, let it take you in, although that doesn't make sense to people's minds. That's dangerous, but that way you don't tire yourself out, and then it spits you out eventually. So that's like kind of the first thing. What I've realized with community building with my nonprofit, which I love, and I love everybody in there, in our nonprofit, is building the environment and the space is better than going at the direct problem, because also you allow that person to lift themselves out. No one needs to save anyone. We all have the tools and the knowledge. It's out there. It's it's encouraging strongly for men specifically. I will say wellness classes, and not just breath work, or like full out wellness. And I have seen this from my sense in the young adults that it takes a while to get a guy there, but once he's in that environment, he's at a yoga thing, he's a breath work, he sees someone cry in a breath work, it breaks down slowly, by being in a different environment than what we're used to or what our algorithms are showing us. So yoga, breath work, tea workshops, um, uh, you know, I, I have found it in my practice, the quote unquote manliest men, when you just get them to do a simple hyperventilation breath work. And also, by the way, even like for kids, like once you finally get them to breathe, it allows them to learn slowly and make it their own, right? They're building this as well. I had a patient recently say to me, okay, so what do I do now? Oh my gosh, I have this thing in therapy. I go, Mom, we did it. We found out it was your parents. Congratulations, we did it. Now what? Now what do we do? Like, great. And a lot of people ask me, what should I do? And I'll give them, like, breath work or a little bit of things. But we're living in a day and age where we have so much information, the craziest amount of information, from podcasts where in the 70s you would have to pay, $2,000 to sit with a guy that has that much information discussing, or a woman, or discussing this information, to YouTube videos, to, connecting with, reaching out to other people, to, just everything, documentaries and stuff. We have so much information that is free that you can access, that you have to go and do it yourself. So the encouragement for somebody, they just see their husband in a rut, they don't know what to do, get them out of the environment they're in and that they've created for themselves subconsciously. And the best kind of way that I have seen is just any version of wellness classes, but not just once a week, like supercharge it, like any online class you can find, anything, and offer rewards. I don't mean to sound silly here, but guys like goals, and if you come with me, to 5 classes, we'll whatever the thing is, we need goals.
So, so, so basically what you're saying is, you'll give them tickets to Broadway if they go through
Sure,
whatever.
whatever.
Find something. Find something.
Find something that motivates, but but in reality, what you're doing is you're giving him the tool to get out of the environment that he's in and the algorithms that he's watching, and to relearn what it means to feel in that moment. Whether it's because every person has to find that for themselves. So, and that puts them in that mode. And I've really seen it. I've seen couples also who, you know, horrible marriages that will do wellness together, classes, things like that, and there's something about just putting yourself in that environment, and also go out to the classes, which is so hard to do, especially if you're going through so much pain and there's fertility things, and God forbid someone shows up with a kid or so, like, I get it. If you can do it in your home, that's great. I would do it in different rooms, to switch up the environment, or a room that's not associated with sadness, so that way it can be associated with all the breathwork stuff and the things. And mind you, not this might be a little bit, not lectures, not a lot of times people are like, oh, we have to listen to lectures and we have to, it doesn't work when someone is feeling bogged down. You don't teach someone how to swim while they're drowning in the lake. You pull them out. And a lot of time lectures is information. We need to get actual things, create routines, stuff like that.
I love that. I think it's deeply important for so many pieces, but I think especially as you're talking about, I mean, obviously our focus here today is the men, and like getting them sort of out of routine and choosing mindfully something different can maybe be that thing to kind of break it up.
And allow them from there to find their own version of a routine. It might not be the breath work that you like to do,
Right.
or the ice baths,
Yeah.
type of thing. And also in wellness, a lot of times there are like 10 different things of that one thing. So like, like ice baths for in general, like, there's doing the cold ice bath, there's doing breath work and ice bath, there's doing ice bath, contrast therapy, so doing ice bath and sauna, ice bath and jacuzzi. There's different versions of these things that allows you then also to get your mind off of, you're growing a lot. Um, Gyms are a hard one because it does exhaust. I would stick more on wellness, as a routine to break it out, because guys are getting the same message over and over and over by mistake. We're not in control of all the what is it? It's like 8,000 ads we see a day, or some crazy
Something absurd.
number.
Yeah,
You
something
know what I
absurd.
mean?
Yeah.
And so how am I able to Judaism does that wonderfully in a way, a lot of times goes overboard, but tries to create an environment and a structure to keep you away from those things. But yeah, we are on an onslaught, and there is a the word toxic masculinity, and the only reason I say it's toxic is because it doesn't allow you to connect, to do good, the things that actually a lot of times does make us feel happy and well, and it just kind of pushes away. We're very good at distracting. Men are very, very good at, I gotta play another video game. I gotta go to the gym. I got another half an hour at the gym, and then 2 hours later they're home. And they're working out, but they're on their phones. And we're very good at taking on the new business trip or the new thing when just at the right time, when it doesn't really make sense, but he's got to work, and this allows to bring it back, if that makes sense, from that, it allows someone who is very good at evading emotionally, subconsciously, to be more present and aware, and then they can make their decisions from there. I'm not trying to change anybody.
Right. I mean, it's brilliant. It makes sense. It's the like we. I mean, there's lots of literature out there that says that the more that you can take care of yourself, regardless of whatever gender you are, the more self-care, the more
Yes.
wellness, the easier it is to move through pain, disappointment, trauma, etc.
I'm
Um,
going to say one last thing,
yeah.
by the way, on this scale. for fertility, for pregnancy, and for postpartum for men, which is 18% of men, which is really high for, or higher than most people would think.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I think it starts with the doctors and why I'm on this type of mission. And the reason I feel it starts with the doctors is it allows the space, right? If when a woman is asked, they're cared for. A professional is taking time, hey, how are you? Are you okay? Right? We want to make sure you're okay. And then that says, oh, I'm allowed to not be okay right now. And so, I mean, we can maybe do this to our spouses as well and say, hey, how are you okay right now? It doesn't make sense. The strongest person in the world wouldn't be okay right now. But you can tell me you're okay, that's fine. But the doctor is saying, hey, turn to a guy and saying, how are you doing? And again, a lot of guys will, make a joke, and now a doctor knows, okay, this guy's not doing well, But even just saying that, and a guy not making jokes, you've now allowed a guy to think to himself, oh, maybe if the doctor's asking, maybe I should research this. Maybe I should ask somebody. Maybe I should become more aware. So I think it really starts, and the doctors are setting that environment. They're opening up the environment for a guy to be allowed to not feel well because they're asking. So I really feel such simple words from a doctor saying, hey, are you okay? What is that, 4 or 5? I think will change a guy's under identity of himself in that moment. So I think it starts
I
with that.
I I I I think it's brilliant, and it really, like, simple words have the capacity to do a lot of good and have and create a lot of change. Um, Michael, I'm so grateful for you being here and sharing these pieces with us, and giving really practical tools also for people in the I Was Supposed to Have a Baby community who are struggling, and who maybe, like, people are seeing their spouses and that they're not sure how to interact with them, or the spouses themselves, the partners themselves, are not sure what to do with these difficult emotions. Um, could you just leave us with, I know we're going to have in the show notes, we're going to have all the places, your email and your contact information where people can reach out to you if they want. But could you leave us with, you know, just maybe one short idea about, like, when you were struggling, when your wife was in labor, and then had this awful, absolutely horrific thing happen with this placental abruption, and you didn't know if she was okay, and you didn't know if your daughter was okay, and that took, like, you obviously had the tools, or you had some pieces of tools to try to, help yourself through those emotions. For the people out there who are literally sitting in some of this right now, what are one or two small things that they could do for themselves, just to, besides reaching out to you? Let's be clear. Um, but what are a couple of things they can do for themselves that just kind of get them a little bit closer to feeling like it's okay to acknowledge and to process?
I love this question, and you kind of answered it at the end. I love, I love this question of what do you do when you're in pain, and whether it's from the neurological makeup of our brain, whether
Mhm.
whether we um, whether it's society that has conditioned us to solve things, or again to survive. We really have not given ourselves the grace to be in pain. We try to get out of it way too fast. And I understand we don't want to be in pain. It's so uncomfortable. And a lot of that starts from practicing before, right? When you get into an ice bath, you have two options. You can either panic, or you can see the pain as okay. And that's it. When I go into an ice bath, you sit there, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm not comfortable. I feel like my toes hurt, but it's just pain. And there's a beautiful study that they did with a monk with a meditator master and regular meditators, and they shocked them. They had them scanned, and they found quite shockingly that the master meditator had more pain than the regular
Wow.
meditators. And that's shocking. I thought he's the master meditator. And what they kind of understood is the meditator got rid of the before and after stories that the brain is telling them. It's just pain. It hurts. That's okay, right? And real pain and discomfort comes from is the stories that we're telling ourselves to say, I'm supposed to be amazing. No, this is wrong. And the best way to do that, honestly, is to build a system that allow whatever routine, whatever thing is to stop your brain. There's lots of little tricks. Make the voice funny. Make the thoughts, practice making your negative thoughts, funny. Try to break down that thing. But in that moment when you feel like pain, it's normal. The last thing I'll end off with is a meditator. I was meditating. I had a thing right here, and it tried to do all the tricks to release the tension right up here. And the meditator guide said, whatever you're feeling right now, accept it. He was British. I don't want to do the British accent, but accept it. And we're not, everyone's chasing enlightenment. It doesn't exist because the chemicals in your brain doesn't work that way. And so if you're feeling like crap, you're allowed to feel like crap. And once you say I'm allowed to, then you can make your decisions from there. But not only letting yourself feel that way, understanding that it's an important thing. My Rebbe gave me it's a concept of 10-90, 10% sacrifice for 90% gain, right? This sucks, and that's okay because I'm gonna have 90% reward from the suckiness. If it's higher, yes, that's it's a lot harder. But I think it's what you said at the end, giving yourself grace, allowing yourself to feel like crap, to feel in pain. And from that release or that understanding, and even if you don't find the answers, that's okay too. You're allowed a bad day. You're allowed to sit at home and feel that way. That is okay. We've been conditioned to think it's not for whatever the reason. And it's really, not only is it okay, it's probably more vital than we realize to be in pain and to be uncomfortable. The only thing I would say is when you're in it, be in it, stay in it, don't try to get out of it. The more you try to push the door, the more the emotions are going to come in. Make a note that I got to work on this so that way next time I could practice when I'm in pain, what routine I need to do, what type of thing I need, who do I need to call, those type of things that allows you to get better for it next time.
I
But it's okay to feel like
I
crap.
love it. I love it. I love it. We talk about it all the time. The more you push it away, the harder and faster it'll come back. And sometimes you never know. It just could erupt at a point where it's super inconvenient and you're like, "Oh God, I wasn't expecting this now. I thought I was fine." And yet, you're forced to deal with things when you least expect it. So I always also say the same thing that
And send text messages to yourself, something people don't do. When you feel like crap, don't write it in your journal. Go to your number, text yourself right now, and go, I am having the worst day ever. And respond. Oh my gosh, you're having the worst day ever? It's a lot of fun. No one does it. I do it. It's phenomenal because while you're feeling horrendous, you're talking to yourself. You're telling yourself. Like if I got a text message having the worst day ever, this is terrible. Yeah, I just got triggered from infertility, seeing oh my gosh, that sounds terrible. I'm so sorry for you. Have a conversation with yourself through text. That way you can see in that moment.
okay. I have officially now learned a new technique for my own self. Thank you very much. And I will be sharing some of this also with the wider, I was supposed to have a baby audience. But Michael Neuman, thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank
So
you.
much for being here, for supporting all of the people that you support, and for enlightening all of us and teaching us to help be better individuals, better partners, better people in the world, that we can, if we help ourselves, we can, the world is a little bit of a better place, right?
Thank you so much for allowing everyone to be here. The stories I heard today on the chats and everything that you shared, unbelievable. And people go through such hard things. And to that point, if we can just be in it with people and hold each other all, as I say in my nonprofit, we all have to help each other. It's
Yes.
not me or the faculty in the organization. No, it's everyone together, and hopefully that message will permeate through the world more, just with these conversations. Thank you so
Amazing.
much for the opportunity.
Amen. Thank you, thank you. And for all of you who are listening, this Insta Live will be up on the podcast within the next week or so. So tune in for that, and we'll have all of Michael's contact information so people can reach out to him directly. Michael, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.